the last question I posed to them...
Maybe we can add something to it before
yes,
you
please.
go to the most difficult question.
All right.
So we can delay it a little bit. No, I mean, I want to build a little bit on what Francis was saying. Sometimes for simplicity's sake, you can sometimes use short words, which you try to... I mean, leaders are merchants of hope, to quote Napoleon. That's to speak to the collective imagination of their people, to get a group identity that way. But something you could talk about the 4 H's, I said, of leadership. One is humanity, humility. The first one, of course, is hope. Hope, humanity, humility, and what's the fourth one? 4 H's, it's simple.
Heaven?
No. A sense of humor, not laughing at other people, but laughing at yourself.
Yes, right.
Hey, repeat that. Repeat it again.
Okay, humanity, no, hope, humanity, humility, and a good sense of humor. But I mean not the kind of English humor you sometimes have, where people are really going to be subtly castrated.
Right.
I once had the unfortunate thing to dismiss the cabinet office, the cabinet secretaries, in a castle, a fantastic castle. The only one who can use it, apparently, is Prince Charles or the Secretary of State. Once a year, some group can come there, and I had to be the facilitator. They picked me as it was totally ridiculous because I'm an alien, like I'm an alien here, an alien. I don't know, I didn't go to Oxford or Cambridge. And you can't believe what was happening there. I mean, the subtlety in which they were castrating each other. They'd done it for years. Symbolically, of course.
Yeah.
But the other thing I think as a very simplistic way is to say about leaders, I think the critical thing, and that's going to be something for Obama, is integrity. Integrity, courage, and impact. Doing something about those things in a very simplistic way.
Well, that's a wonderful segue, because my third question to them was, what would be the contents of a memo that you would send to the next president? And whether you voted for him or not, I think it's fair to say that we have seen, especially on the international level, a reaction to this election that is very unusual, if not unprecedented. People waving American flags, and there's a rising tide of hope, that first H, and so what advice? I'm sorry, you don't give advice, but if you were to write a memo...
You're so nice, Dick. You're a nice guy.
I try to be not as nice as I appear, though. And if you were writing a memo suggesting what are the circumstances and what is the context, I'm looking for another word besides advice. What would the memo? What would some of the elements be?
I'm standing up because the people in the back don't see anybody, so you can at least see my face when I make faces at Dick. So you can. But in the first place, I'm an alien. There was not what I noted when I came to America the first time. I said alien. I didn't know an alien was some kind of outer space. So an alien. Right. But being that, Obama is incredibly important to the rest of the world. We have seen that. I was, when I'm flying over from Paris to Los Angeles, and I told that to other group. I was reading the book Dreams for My Father, and I found it a very touching book and a very literate book and a very reflective book. And as a psychoanalyst, of course, there is a dream. And it's a prophetic dream, as I said. It's a dream, it's like a dream of something to happen. A person has something to do as a task. Basically, it's handed over in the dream by his father who's dying. He was already dead, his father, at the time when he dreamt the dream, but he couldn't mourn his father, actually. After the dream, he started to mourn his father. And so the element of, for the United States, healing, rainbow society, and all those kind of things we talk about. But also more than that, because America, with all my jokes about US-centric, fortunately or unfortunately, I spent too much time in Russia. I certainly don't want it to Russian-centric, because that's not as... It's fortunately US-centric in many ways, because this is an immigration society, so people are welcome. And so it has such a pivotal position in the rest of the world. Now, as advice, in the first place, and he's doing that right now, you have to get your leadership brand right, whatever you might call it. Meaning, you have to provide some focus for those people, and you have to really have some courageous, meaningful conversations, including Hillary Clinton. that you really talk about some of the issues that took place during this election period. So you really pick your core team, your lieutenants are with you. And then, of course, those are the key things. At the moment, he has a lot of, the problem with him, of course, is that the Messiah is coming, we protect all our fantasies of him, and nobody can ever, do that. So after that being said, the leadership brand is okay, he has the right people in place. I think he has to do two things on a world stage. That's my feeling, but it's very personal, so I don't, my biases. I remember when Bush became the CEO of America, the first thing he did was not sign the Kyoto Agreement. And that really disturbed the rest of the world immensely because, and he basically denied there was something as global warming. I think as a leader, you are, as I mentioned about this man with 30,000 people, you're all the time watched. And particularly, of course, the President of the United States watched all that. But symbolic action is incredibly important. And so the first thing would be to sign the Kyoto Agreement, which I think sets a sign for the world. The second one, like it or not, he has to re-establish trust in the financial system. And that means that, this is not totally unoriginal, but some kind of new Bretton Woods system has to be put in place. Unfortunately, Sarkozy, who happens to be in the country I live in, is one of the greater narcissists in the world, but he's better than his predecessor, who was also a narcissist but didn't do anything, was running a museum. For so many years. So Sarkozy at least it's fascinating to read what Sarkozy wrote and what Obama wrote. It can be more different. Sarkozy is one thing after the other, action, action, action. But he never looks back, he never looks at things are finished. So I think Obama should focus on a few things first as symbolic action. And they're both extremely important, I think. The financial system, of course, for me, as a psychoanalyst, it's amazing. I've worked a lot with the financial system, with all the investment bankers, and the element of splitting, to sell subprime at the time, taking short positions and things like that, Chinese walls. The whole thing is, my comparison is the mafia. A mafia boss who says, I love my wife and children, and runs a whorehouse at the side. You split, vertical walls, but you knew in your heart of heart, and it's also the emperor's clothes. When I would ask somebody, what do you do? I'm a financial engineer. What do you do? I work in derivatives. What are derivatives? Nobody could explain to me. Then ask a CEO of a bank, what is derivative? Can you tell me what derivative? Nobody knows. Few mathematical geniuses know how it works. And this is ridiculous. Mm-hmm. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And since America, the American stock market, it was funny, I was in Davos last year, and the Chinese and the Indians said, we will not be affected, whatever happened, we are independent. But you see now really the comment about how the world is flat. So whatever Obama does has an enormous effect on the world. And so I hope some of those things he will do. Yeah. Sorry for my long-winded...
No, it was wonderful.
Wonderful.
That wasn't long.
And adding to that, and going back to your first statement, you'd be in a position to add to that memo too. Look at some of your predecessors and how they laid the ground for their successes. In those terms, we haven't had a successful presidency perhaps since Ronald Reagan.
This man is the first, I want to add it to it, for the rest of the world. Is the first truly multicultural president you ever had. This man has deep experience in other countries, plus he's brought up in Hawaii, which is probably a much more multicultural society. And so I think, this is remarkable. And so, with all the jokes being made by the other party about this multiculturalism, he has it. Yeah. And I think he also, as I think McGregor Burns said, unfortunately, he's a 21st century president in an 18th century bureaucracy. And I remember that statement. It was was the head of Harvard Kennedy School at the time. He wrote his book, which I have a senior moment at the moment, I'm getting older. But basically he said, when Eisenhower became president, he said, poor Reich, he will say, do this, do that, but nothing happens, not like the army. And the problem is you have to get this bureaucracy moving, all this is going to be very difficult. Yeah. And that's going to be his challenge, how to get it to move. But we have Frances for that,
that's right,
to solve that problem, because she already knows some experience.
So we're moving to the second memo.
I'll reply with a story. May I?
Sure.
Okay. I was CEO of Girl Scouts of the USA for 5,000 days. That's about 13 plus years. My last year was the most exuberant year of my whole career, which is always what it should be. And we had the last. Every year I would bring together 335 local CEOs and 100 staff members for a 5-day learning experience and bring great thought leaders together. This was the last time we would ever be together. And I invited Peter Drucker and Warren Bennis and Marshall Goldsmith. We had 5 great thought leaders who all had a recent book, sent the book bag. When they got there, the authors were there. Now, they all spoke. It was a marvelous time, and the last hour was a dialogue with Peter Drucker and Francis. As Joel introduced us, he said, "Francis, we've played a trick on you. It's not a dialogue. Peter Drucker is going to interview you." I thought, I'm going to die right now, but it wasn't convenient. So we're sitting there, and it was fascinating. We got to the very last question. "Francis, you're going to hang your portrait as you leave, and underneath will be a little brass plaque. What will it say?" Think about that. If you were asked that, well, I never thought of that. No one had ever asked me that, and I heard myself saying, "I hope it will say she never broke a promise." He said, "No, it will say she kept the faith." Now, you translate that any way you like. And since then, I often end a speech with, the future called and they responded, they kept the faith. So my little short note to Obama, and I voted for him and was for him from the first minute, my note would say,
I'm with you. I'm with you.
good.
I'm supporting you. I'm supporting
Yeah, I
you.
almost sent you a absentee ballot. So I would want Obama to begin with 4 years from now, or 8 years from now, when they hang my portrait. Mm-hmm. What will be on that little brass plaque? And, sir, I hope it will say, he kept the faith, because millions of people in our country have faith that there is a future, an honorable future. And more millions all around the world have hope. And so that's all I would say to him. When you walk out that door, on the little brass plaque, it will say, he kept the faith, and we will all translate faith in our own terms.
Wonderful.
It's actually interesting. There's a Chinese definition of happiness, which is something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. And that's very important. Very simple definition, but it's very powerful.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Excuse me? Something to do, someone to love, and something to hope for. Actually, Ingrid Bergman said happiness is good health and a bad memory.
We're going to turn this over to you now, but before we do that, let me remind you, number one, that we've talked about 3 things: concepts of leadership. Number 2, we've talked about fireside chats and conversations about what it is that, well, it was actually advice, AKA advice. And the third was a memo to Obama. So before